Andrew, my nightmare father-in-law who tells me I'm not good enough for his son. Well, he has something coming towards him, because one day, when I was cleaning his office, I discovered something that was going to be detrimental to him. So what do? I decide to use that to my benefit. Oh, and it works. I've been married to my husband Samuel for a little over a year now. He's my exact opposite, where I'm more on the extroverted side. He's one of the biggest introverts I've ever known. I met him when I worked the night shift at a restaurant part-time. I admired him ever since. He had a business date then, and despite instantly telling me that he was the quiet type, could not help but fall for the way that he spoke to his business partner. Every time I bring that up, Samuel always teases me, and my not-so-subtle eavesdropping. He was able to tell that his conversation wasn't private and got my number that night after confronting me about it. Dating Samuel was refreshing. I was used to the loud and proud type, but Samuel was different. Sure, he was proud of everything he did, but he hardly ever boasted about it. He liked to say that he preferred his success speaking for him. I used to really hate people like that because I thought that they were worse than the ones that actually did brag, but Samuel changed that for me. To my surprise, in fact, Samuel changed me in a lot of ways, some of which I wasn't entirely comfortable with. For starters, he got me to quit my job and work as an assistant in a partner company, and I didn't want to in the beginning, especially since I'm used to doing and providing things for myself, but Samuel had recommended a few channels and sites to learn certain skills from, plus there was the personal help that I got from him. In a few months, my job became easy, and I stopped getting bothered about getting a job I did not deserve. I grew to love my job, and was grateful to Samuel for giving me the push that I did not know I needed. I'd say the only change that's difficult to get used to even now is Samuel's family. I was insecure when I first met his parents because Sam and I were so different. He was raised by wealthy and moral parents, and Samuel laughed the first time I told him this, but his parents were raised Christian and taught him the same values they practiced. Samuel also worked with his father as CFO and made vital decisions as the next owner of the family business. I, on the other hand, lived with my father till I was 20 years of age. He was absent during most of my teen years, and leaving me with one neighbor or the other, and when I was nearing 20, I left my home with the little savings that I've gotten and got a one-bedroom apartment. I remember wishing that my mom was with me, though I have no memories of her since she died during childbirth. Sam had a family to support him and a stable future. I had no one to support me, and before Sam, my future looked bleak. I met Sam's parents 9 months after we started dating. My mother-in-law, Agatha, warmed up to me in no time. She recognized me when we first met and later figured that I used to work in a restaurant. That revelation made things harder for me. But when Sam's mom saw how good I was in the kitchen, she became nicer. In a way, the absence of a mother in my life was an advantage to gaining her love as well. I call her every weekend and we have the most random discussions. I've promised to take her canoeing whenever we're both free, and I can't remember the last time I went canoeing since I did so with my dad when I was younger. But I do know it was an activity I enjoyed. I'm finally going to talk about Samuel's father, Andrew. I never really liked him from the first day that we met. He kept staring at me like I had two heads and did not say a single word when I greeted him. At dinner that night, he was quiet but watched me like a hawk. I was so tempted to ask why he could not stop staring, but I was also trying to make a good impression, so I settled for calming my shaking hands. When I confirmed that I used to work in a restaurant, he gave off a sound that sounded like a cross between a mirth and a pained shock. Well, days after that, I met him again. He spoke, then telling me to leave Samuel and marry someone within my league. He also promised to make my life miserable if I did not listen to him, and then promised to get Sam married to someone else. He tried. I remember Samuel talking about a woman his father had introduced him to, and that was one of the reasons we got married so quickly. Samuel had confronted Andrew, and when he had told Sam that he wasn't going to let him get married to me, my husband had taken action immediately. I did not expect it, and it's another reason I love him the way that I do. I thought that after some time, Andrew would warm up to me, and he had wanted a daughter-in-law with a better upbringing, but I was happy to change the parts of me that he was not fond of. In fact, I was willing to adjust to everything he needed me to be so that he would finally accept me. Nothing I did worked. I tried calling every time to check up on him, taking him out, sending gifts, and jumping to help as soon as I heard there was a problem either at work or at home. It was all pointless. I even learned a language just to please Andrew. Samson speaks both Spanish and Latin, but sometimes a person just has to walk away from a losing battle. I was tired of putting in so much effort for just one person, an effort that wasn't paying off in the slightest. I promised to put up with the insults and snide comments that he kept on making. Yesterday was the last straw, though. I was at work and Andrew called, and I forwarded the call to my boss, of course, only for me to get summoned and told never to take calls from Andrew again. I don't even want to say why that was, but by lunchtime, I overheard two colleagues on my floor talking about it. Andrew was more than welcome to mess with me at home and during family meetings, but not at the workplace. I'm upset right now. All I can think about is storming into my father-in-law's office and yelling his head off. I settled for talking to Samuel about it because if I talked to my irritating father-in-law, I'd get ignored most likely. Or is there something else that I can do? Update number 1. Hey guys, I talked to my husband about this. Naturally, Sam got upset and called his father, but there was no reply. He promised to keep contacting Andrew, but I almost told him to drop it. But it wasn't to put a stop on time. Andrew could easily find other ways to mess with me. Last week it was work. Lord knows what it'll be next. Funny enough, and I just remembered this, I called Andrew, too. I was pretty certain that he would ignore me, especially after he ignored Samuel, but he took my call and told me to tell Samuel to stop calling him. I was pretty shocked because he knew very well that Samuel wanted to talk to him about, well, how to choose the act of ignorance. Anytime I think about it, I get annoyed because he acts so moral, yet dodges and hides away like a coward to prevent all forms of confrontation. I did not tell Samuel about the call, though. I didn't want to add any fuel to the fire. Besides, it did not seem like Andrew was at a remorseful after what he's done. Neither did that seem likely. Later on, the same week, I can't remember when exactly, I got a message from Andrew inviting me to dinner. Shocking, isn't it? I have not been married to Samuel for long, but this seemed out of character for Andrew. Samuel later told me that his father had plans to apologize to me for his behavior, and I was pretty convinced that it was a sham, but at the same time, dinner was a bit too much for somebody who hated being around me. I thought that I was wrong about Andrew after all. You know, he was a human being, and a father who just wanted the best for his beloved son. So, 2 days ago, I had dinner with Andrew at a regular restaurant. A part of me was expecting something big and fancy, not because he ought to spend money on me to get my forgiveness or anything, but because Andrew was just that type of person. I had mixed feelings on seeing the restaurant. On one hand, I assumed Andrew invited me to an average restaurant to make me feel more comfortable. But on the other hand, I believed it was a twisted way of mocking my upbringing. I was neutral when going in to meet my father-in-law, though. My first mistake, I guess. Andrew was cordial while we ate, pouring me wine and smiling occasionally, though he did not speak. I was touched. I thought there was still some hope for the both of us to have a good relationship. Andrew had other plans, because when he asked me what it would take to leave Samuel, I almost choked on my food. Thinking I wasn't hearing it right, he asked again. I understood the purpose of the dinner. Andrew promised to give me whatever amount of money I desired, as long as I got a divorce from Samuel. I thought he did not believe in divorces given his background, and when I brought it up, Andrew has made some silly excuses about my marriage not having any roots yet, since it's fairly new. And I could only stare at him in silence. The final blow was him leaving me all alone after asking me to think about it, then paying for my meal because, and I quote, he could buy our meals 1,000 times over. I thought of telling my husband absolutely everything. I was very close to doing so. In fact, I knew that Andrew would do something else after irritating the incident at the office, But I really did not expect this. I sat in that restaurant for a while, pondering what I've done to deserve the kind of treatment I got from my father-in-law. I'd never been rude to him, had tried so much to get on his good side, and was willing to change myself just so that he would accept me as his daughter. Why did he keep treating me like my background was entirely my fault? I tried to get a decent job, but I did not attend college and did not have much experience. I'd worked hard with the help of my husband to get where I'm at today. Did Andrew not see all of that? I don't want to say this, but I've cried on my way home from the restaurant. That's how much it's affected me. I'd gone to bed as soon as I got home, giving my husband the excuse that I was exhausted. I did not get up till I was sure that he had gone to work. Yesterday at work, Samuel called and asked how the dinner with his father had gone. I was pretty close to telling him the truth, but I stopped myself and said I'd enjoyed the dinner with his dad. I kept the truth to myself because I didn't want Samuel, who was currently working, to begin to worry or get upset with his dad. Worst case scenario, he would confront his dad about everything, which might lead to yet another problem. Then there was the fact that Andrew had informed Samuel that he was taking me out to dinner as an apology. How exactly was I supposed to tell him that Andrew had not planned to apologize, but to insult and leave his son? I didn't know what to do. I won't be leaving my husband, that's for sure. I can't report him to anyone either because of the influence that he has in this city. His own family will definitely support him, or at least Agatha would. Would my husband listen to my truth, or is it just better if I remain quiet? Update number 2. Guys, I told Samuel everything. I had not planned on doing so, but I was sick of constantly worrying about it. I told Samuel about a week after meeting with his father, and I was right about one thing. He had not believed me then, and I had told him that Andrew was trying to make amends a few days ago and that dinner had gone well. After all, I could not exactly blame him for doubting me. I was afraid that this would be the reaction I got, and in the end, my fear had become a reality. I didn't bother talking about it again, and Samuel did ask a few more times, but I dismissed the matter entirely. I just hated that I was keeping things from my husband. I hated that he started feeling like he had done something wrong to warrant the treatment I was giving him. I was becoming more and more distant, leaving for work early and arriving late. I could not talk to Samuel about anything. It hurt to even think that we might argue because of Andrew. Andrew had been smart by inviting me to dinner, and I wished that I had not gone in the first place. Agatha called me as well. I can't even remember what day that was. My mind scrambled, it's a mess at the moment, and I had totally forgotten about our weekly calls and had unknowingly ignored it. I had to check my call log, and indeed, right there, 3 missed calls from Agatha. I apologized profusely, telling her that I'd been preoccupied. To my surprise, Agatha asked to see me during the weekend. She promised to treat me to a good meal and give me a listening ear. I declined at first because I wasn't interested in being a bother, but she was having none of that. After the call, I was partly relieved. I wasn't going to tell her about Andrew, but at least I could get some of my worries off of my chest. Samuel has been distant as well. Adding to my constant worry, I knew he was just acting out because of my attitude towards him, but I was still hurt by it. At the same time, I still could not talk to him. I held out till Saturday and went to see Agatha. She wasn't kidding about treatment, the good food, because as I ate, I realized that I was malnourished. I could not finish it all, and she gave me some to take home since I enjoyed it so much. Agatha also made a joke about hunger being a huge part of a person's problems, and she was right. I felt better and more willing to talk about everything, but instead of talking about Andrew, I made it seem like a colleague of mine was having problems with her father-in-law. I did mention the part about Samuel and the fact that, well, we were not on good terms. Agatha ended up giving me the best idea. She said that my friend was extremely patient because she would have taken action if it were her. When I asked what she would have done, she told me that she would get back at her father-in-law any way possible. Agatha told me to advise my, quote, friend to put her father-in-law in his place, even if it meant stooping down to his level. At least she would have some satisfaction from getting her revenge, even if things weren't really resolved. She's also advising me to talk things through with Samuel after apologizing and giving him some of the food that she would package up for me. It was all very excellent advice, and I knew I was going to heed everything as she talked, mostly because I did not have any plans in my mind. But at that time, I wondered what exactly I could do to get my revenge on a man who could not get himself out of any trouble and was incredibly moral. He didn't have any dirt on him, so I postponed that plan and decided to focus on fixing my problems with Sam. He forgave me almost immediately. That man. I thought that it would take a lot of convincing, but that was not the case at all. I just said I was sorry for ignoring him and his feelings, and Sam pulled me into a quick hug, saying that he's been worried about me for days, and I promised to tell him everything in my own time, and he agreed to wait it out. That's what being in love feels like. Forgiving the other person is easy, and if Andrew thought I was going to give up this because he thought I wasn't perfect for his son, he had another thing coming. We did eat the food Agatha packaged. It still tasted amazing, and I could only laugh when Sam swore to make his mother teach me her recipes. The perfect opportunity to get back at Andrew presented itself. I went to visit the house to surprise Agatha with a new pasta recipe I've come up with. I was not expecting her to be absent and for my father-in-law to be there instead, and he had not known that I was standing outside his study. But I overheard him talking to somebody as he typed on his computer. It turned out that he was only reading out what he texted. I could not see him because the door was closed, but after listening for about 5 minutes, I had a vague idea about what he had been doing on his computer. I was surprised because he was the last person I'd expected to do something like that, but then again, he's a human. No one was going to believe me if I told them without any sort of proof, so I'd have to get evidence from my father-in-law's laptop. I'm a bit scared, and I might be backing out of this plan because so many things could go wrong, but this is a golden opportunity to get back at Andrew, and I don't know. I honestly don't know. Update number 3. I went through with my plan, guys. Are you ready for this? Another rare opportunity presented itself. Agatha had called me a week ago to help with dinner preparations for some guest Andrew was planning to go into business with. Better still, she literally gave me the keys to Andrew's studies, saying that she printed out a list containing the guest food preferences. I could tell that this was a big deal for Andrew, because who the heck had a list of guest preferred food choices? I went ahead after a few failed attempts guessing Andrew's passwords. It was Samuel's middle name. I went through his browsing history and found what I was looking for. My father-in-law was a regular visitor of a dating site popular amongst teenage boys. The chat was open, and I wonder who made that kind of mistake. Then again, I'm sure he never would have thought that somebody would go through his computer. After taking a few screenshots and printing them out, I deleted any evidence that would point towards me tampering with the computer, and left the study. Andrew himself had just stepped out of the bedroom, judging by the sounds I heard from his bedroom. He went back to his study a few minutes later, probably to resume texting Gloria or Kristen. Ugh, how disgusting. I practiced a few recipes with Agatha before leaving for my home. She had told me countless times that everything had to be perfect during the dinner with a guest, and each time I was filled with guilt. My mother-in-law was making preparations and working hard to make the dinner a success. Then there was me, who had plans to sabotage absolutely everything about it. The only excuse I gave myself was that I was going to expose the kind of man Andrew really was to the entire family. All the respect he was being shown for being an upright man was finally going to be a thing of the past. The night before the dinner, I told Agatha that I wanted to print out the menu for the guest. She liked the idea, telling me to go ahead with the plan, and the guilt resurfaced. Agatha trusted me too much, yet I was going to do something so despicable to her family. I almost backed out, to be honest, but when Andrew called and told me not to mess up his plans like I usually do, my resolve returned. To hell with keeping Andrew's shady acts in the dark. I was going to get back at my father-in-law no matter what. I picked out a simple design for the menu cover, pasted the printed screenshots inside, and I took a good look at the menus, looking for reasons to put my plan to a stop. I found none. I should have probably shortened the story now because I recognized a few guests because some had been involved with my company in one way or the other. I'd read about the others, and I could tell that every single person Andrew invited had a form of influence or the other. I had placed my menus in front of all the guests and walked into the kitchen to help Agatha out, only stepping out after hearing my first, "What the hell?" I watched from a distance, smirking at the disgusted looks and shock on the face of the guest. Andrew's face was a classic. He appeared constipated, but when I took a look at Sam, I felt bad, immediately. He walked out, and I followed him, leaving Andrew to deal with his guest. The car, drive was quiet, and Sam told me he needed some time to think everything through before leaving our bedroom to the guest room. I don't know what to think. Did I make a big mistake in the name of revenge? Update number 4. Hey guys, I spoke to Samuel the next day and I told him everything. And while he was still upset that I'd cost the company a huge deal, he told me he understood why I've done something so drastic. It's been a month since that conversation and things are perfectly fine between myself and my husband. He's very upset with his father though. Agatha was harder to talk to. She did not take any of my calls, and when I visited, she refused to see me. I spoke to her a week ago, and while it was strained, I knew it was only a matter of time. She, like Samuel, is mad at Andrew. Samuel told me that she had talked about staying at a hotel for a brief period of time, just to be away from Andrew. I'm sure I don't have to say that Andrew did not get the deal that he hoped for. He's the only member of my extended family I have not spoken to since that chaotic dinner. I couldn't care less, to be honest. All I want is to restore my relationship with Agatha and strengthen the bond between my husband and me. As long as Andrew isn't bothering me, I'm perfectly fine with our current, non-existing relationship. Well, it looks like Andrew finally got what he deserves, and that was his being exposed to the family. I mean, he was this high-up figure that was well respected in the community, had earned a name for himself, and then all of a sudden his internet history gets released to a bunch of people that had a lot of power as well, and things don't work out very well for Andrew after that. But the question I want to ask you guys today is, do you think Andrew deserved that type of treatment from OP? That's the comment I want to leave with you guys. My name's Mr. Reddito, if you guys are new to the channel, and I do stories like this every single day. We're talking mother-in-law dramas, wedding fiascos, cheating stories, nightmare in-law stories that you couldn't even fathom. We have it all. So if you want part of these daily videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and just remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.